Hey guys, alright, so in this video we're going to cover the build that I used to kill Uber Aberroth. This is a Spark Charge Lightning Blast Sorcerer, and I did put out a video the other day of the Uber Aberroth kill. You can go check out that video if you're interested in seeing the full gameplay of the fight. But this video we're going to cover mainly just go over the character, how we built it, and a couple of thoughts about gearing for the fight, especially on this kind of Sorcerer Spark Charge build. Okay, so the build is basically just a modified version of my Static Orb Lightning Blast Sorcerer, and yeah, we'll cover the changes and that kind of stuff in this video. So first of all, gearing for the fight. I did first of all try to build a lot of defense on the character, so I had a very defensive setup with a lot of ward retention, a lot of ward. I think I got all the way up to about 10,000 ward, and it was like pretty tanky, you know, but eventually I kind of came to the realization that even though we have all this 10,000 ward, and I'm still going to be dying from a lot of things that would kill me even at 7,000 ward, right? So the main things that I wanted to be able to tank on this build is I want to be able to tank the triple flail slam with my flame shield, flame ward up. So without flame ward up, it doesn't really matter if I'm at 10,000 ward or 7,000 ward, I'm still going to get one shot by it. So, and with flame ward up, I can tank it at 7,000 ward or 10,000, right? Or even at like 3,000 ward. If I pop flame ward, I'm still going to be able to tank it because it only does like 2,500 to 3,000 ish, 3,500 damage. So basically all that defense stats were pretty much kind of wasted because it's not really saving you from a lot of things, and you know it didn't really make a difference in the end. So basically just building more damage was the best approach, I think, on this type of character. And basically you just rely on just not getting hit, right? So if you don't get hit, then you don't take any damage pretty much. I mean, obviously there is a lot of unavoidable damage in the fight. Most of that is actually going to be the void beams and the void puddles. So those two things are the only real things that actually do damage to you in the fight. If you're playing, at least how I played, where we just dodge everything. Every now and then, if we're in a pinch, we can actually just pop our flame ward and tank through some abilities. So the character ended up being just, I wouldn't call it a glass cannon because we are pretty like tanky, I would say, especially when flame ward is up. But you can see I don't even have maxed resistances, only, you know, I only maxed void mainly because of the dot. I want as much dot mitigation as possible, and fire is just kind of random because I had some fire res in my belt, but yeah. Pretty much this is the stats. Int 194 only, and I guess we'll cover the gear and that kind of stuff too, but there's a lot of different gear combinations I've tried. You know, you can take a look at the gear here. We'll cover all of the different like variations I tried as well, but the reason that my int is very low is because of I'm using the experimental belt, or the champion belt with the Lightning Blast mod, so I can't use the Orion's Descent. With Orion's Descent, I'd be at like 220 int. First of all, let's go take a look at a T4 Julra and see what you can do to her with this build. It's pretty funny. Alright, and it's kind of funny. This build is probably one of the highest single target damage sorcerer builds in the game at the moment. You can even get way more damage than I currently have with like better gear, obviously, but this is probably the fastest I've killed Julra, T4 Julra, and most importantly is we're going to stun her out of her, we're going to do so much damage, we're going to stun her out of her animation for the explosion. We can also tank the explosion if we wanted to, and she's not even going to get the explosion off. So let's go and give it a spin. So basically, quickly touch on the rotation. This build does have quite a lot of buttons and timing. You could say rewards very, like, you know, timing based gameplay. So basically, because we're using the Julra's star dials, these are going to be tripling the stats on the ring every time we use a traversal skill, so our teleport or evade. And so we do want to keep in mind the cooldown and try to get in as much damage as possible during that 4-second window, right? So basically, yeah, we're going to teleport, and then we have our frost wall that is going to give us basically just 12% more damage. So we want to pop that and then use our flame ward because this gives us a little more damage, and then use a potion because this gives us more attack speed. So basically the burst combo is you would teleport, you cast your meteor for the cast speed buff, you cast the frost wall, and then you use your flame ward and potion. So quite a lot of buttons to kind of push and that kind of stuff, but it's kind of fun. So let's see if we can get it down properly. And you can kind of see it's kind of funny. But yeah, that's the T4 Julra kind of DPS. You can kind of see what it's like. Pretty insane. Alright, so let's go over the gear. First of all, why are we playing low life? And so I'm not really happy with the state of ward on Sorcerer at the moment. Feels like ward generation is pretty bad, especially on Sorcerer. So playing low life because, like I mentioned before, most of the damage we're going to be taking is damage over time. And a lot of times you're going to be running around in the fight, not hitting anything. So it means if you use Twisted Heart and that kind of stuff, you're not going to be generating ward. And I really didn't like that. So low life basically gives us constant ward regen. And if we do take a hit, we can kind of back off, and then our ward will sort of, regenerate on its own without us having to do anything. So that's very nice. And then let's see. So yeah, Exsanguinous, Last of the Living, and then the experimental mod on the gloves. This is the low life setup we're using. Then for the helmet, so I went for the Bone Clamor helmet because, well, I was first using the Dominance of the Tundra, and then I noticed that, well, this casts Glacier whenever you evade, so that means every time I evade, I'm just losing like 30 to 40 mana, which did add up in the long run, and I found myself like saying, oh, I don't want to actually have to spend mana, so I'm not going to evade, and then I just end up dying. So basically just swapped helmets because I want to evade as much as possible whenever I can, right? So that's why we're using the Bone Climber helmet. Then for the wand, it's Mad Alchemist Ladle, and I did swap my wands around. I have quite a few of these wands that I've made, and the one I ended up liking the best was one with cast speed, crit strike chance, and lightning penetration. Normally I would have things like another ailment on here or something, but in this case I was already capped on the ailment, so getting the extra 12% lightning penetration was pretty big for DPS. And in this fight, you need pretty much every little bit of DPS. There was a lot of times in the fight where I would get him to phase 4, and I would have killed him, but because I didn't have enough damage, the fight went on so long, and he eventually did something that killed my character. And if I had 15% more DPS, I would have beat him, right? Anyways, so that happened a few times, and so I just tried to squeeze every little bit of damage. Like, it doesn't really matter. You might think, oh, it's not so important, but every little 1% more DPS you get is pretty impactful in the fight. Okay, so that's why we're going for the lightning pen over here on the ladle. And then for the amulet, so I made a new amulet, specifically on the Oracle amulet base for the less damage over time. Like I said, this character, the things are going to kill you is the void beams and the void puddles, pretty much. Or, I mean, if you do mess up, obviously you get hit by a slam or something, you'll die. But that's one of the worst things in the fight is, in the last phase, the void beams, and then throughout the fight, if you're not good at dodging the void puddles and those things. Obviously in the last phase, there's going to be void puddles, so dot mitigation, very important. And then for the fragment, this is the one I've been using the whole time, just crit multi-cast speed. And obviously getting double T7 or T7, T6 would make a huge difference on this character. And so I mean, you can get even more damage, like on these rings here. I'm using the Jewel Star Dial because these are just insane DPS when you have the buff up. So we get these stats on the ring get tripled. So if we take a look at my Spark Charge tooltip, it's kind of insane. You can see 527k on the Spark Charges. So pretty insane tooltip because of these Jorah's Star Dials, pretty much. Right, so if you imagine if you had a double T7 slam on this with 120% increased lightning damage, that gets tripled. So right now I'm getting 150% from the T5 lightning damage here and here. So that's combined like 300% more increased damage. But then imagine if you had the T7 increased lightning damage on here as well, then you're going to be at like 600% increased lightning damage. So you can get quite a lot of damage if you have better items. think make the fight quite a bit easier, but I didn't have them, and it's at the point where I just don't really want to farm more favor and just like do all that kind of stuff, so I just figured we'd just do it with the gear I had at the moment. Okay, so for the belt, we want to get one of these champion belts with the lightning damage. Lightning Blast has a chance to chain 4 additional times. So this belt, the base is also quite important. I want the potion base because it gives me 6 potion slots, and potions are pretty important. I mean, you can get one on like a plate belt if you want to get more armor, but it's not going to make a difference if you have another like couple hundred more armor in this fight, because of I mean, we kind of already covered it, but it's not going to really save you from any other bigger hits, right? Basically, yeah, the potion base, because the potions, first of all, we get attack and cast speed with Exsanguinous, and then I'm converting all of my potion to ward with a bit mod on the belts, and then some idols. So my potions give me quite a bit of extra ward. You could say each potion is roughly like 2,000 ward or so that I'm getting per potion. And the reason we're getting so much is because of first of all, converting the potion to ward, and then also in the sorcerer tree, I'm using the elixir of knowledge to get ward per intelligence. So we get 3 ward per intelligence. We have like 200 intelligence, so we get like 600 plus from there. So that's quite a big sustain coming from the potion. So especially when you're in a pinch, especially in the last phase, where there's just all this unavoidable damage, and you need to like kind of tank through it, just like spam potions and flame ward, and you can like jump from, I don't know, like 2k. You say you take a big hit, you're at 2,000 ward, you can use some potions and your flame ward, and you'll be back at like 7,000, 8,000 ward. So pretty important, I think, using potions for your kind of sustain as well as a DPS increase from Exsanguinous. Alright, so the gloves, Immortal Vise, kind of funny that we're using Uber items to beat the Uber boss, and I do think these 2 items are mandatory for this setup. You can't really run a low life setup without these items. I mean, because first of all, we need the crit from the Shattered Worlds, otherwise we'd have to use some other kind of item to get our base crit, right? So, I mean, it is doable. I guess you would probably use the other helmet with the crit, or you use the gloves with the crit. But if you use the gloves with the crit, then it means those also have spell leech, so that means you need to stop your leech, so that means you have to use that unique amulet, and it gets kind of messy. So I don't know, you could probably pull it off, but it's not going to be really good until you have a Shattered Worlds. Okay, so we're using the gloves here mainly just for the extra tankiness, so that 30% hit damage taken is dealt over 4 seconds instead, so that gives us you know, a little bit more max hit. And then also, I guess the health and strength is nice, right? You get a little bit more armor, you get more health for the Exsanguinous ward generation, but mainly just using these for the hit mitigation. Shattered Worlds, this one pretty much, I mean, it's the best relic in the game, using this for the base crit mostly, and then also the all attributes. Pretty insane. +1 to all skills is nice, but not super impactful. I mean, it is pretty good actually. All right, and then okay, so for the wand, if you have a 2 LP wand, then you pretty much just want the cast speed and crit multi, and the third one will be the penetration. For the Exsanguinous, a 2 LP, if you only have a 2 LP, then you go for the int and the crit multi. And then if you have only a 2 LP fragment, then you get the crit multi and void res. Or you go for cast speed, but then you will have to swap your crit multi blessing to the void res, because there isn't really anywhere else to get void res, so get it on the fragment. I guess you could get it on the amulet, but you need your fizz res here as well as the armor shred, pretty much. Okay, and then for the Julra rings, if you have a 1 LP, you go for the int. If you have a belt, obviously getting, I think you could either go for the exalted lightning damage here, or I think if there's spell damage, that also works, or you could also go for the exalted potion converted to ward. That could go up to about 60 to even 100% at T7, and then you can kind of get rid of these idols, right? And then you could run 4 of these. So either way, this belt is like pretty bad, but it's the best I had. So on the suffix, I would definitely get health, hybrid health, and then maybe even cooldown reduction. More cooldown reduction for Flame Ward would be pretty big. You see my cooldown, I don't have any CDR. I did try it for a bit and it was okay, but then I just realized that it's just wasted points because I just need to get my timing down better, and then I won't need cooldown reduction. But it definitely does make the build feel a lot better with CDR, so get that maybe. But anyways, so this is the build. I'll have a ideal aspirational planner in the the description. You can go check out of what I think, like, the best affixes would be. And anyways, okay, so for the gloves, if you only have a 1 LP, then you go for the missing health. If you don't have one with LP, then just don't use the gloves. Use any other kind of eternal gauntlets or something like that with the experimental mod. You want that mod to be as high as possible, because that's a very big amount of your ward. You see, we're going to start losing tons of ward without this. It's pretty much the exact same ward generation as the Exsanguinous chest, which is pretty big. Okay, last of the living. If you only have 1 LP, then you go for the intelligence, and shattered rolls. If you don't have LP on this, then just use whatever. I was using one without the int for the longest time. Okay, so that is the lower LP versions. Okay, so another thing on the belt is, why aren't we using the Orion's Descent? And Orion's Descent is nice because, 25 int, pretty insane for spark charges since they do get flat damage from int. But this champion mod with the Lightning Blast ×4 chain is actually more damage. So this thing is not affected by the Lightning Blast node here, the conversions. So this doesn't get halved basically. So it's 4 additional chains. And when you have a lot of cast speed, this is going off quite a few times. So this ends up doing way more damage because we're applying a lot more spark charges that end up doing more damage and getting an additional 25 int. Although the damage is quite comparable, I would say. But the main downside to the Orion's Descent that I really didn't like was only 3 potions, right? And since potions are a pretty big part of the build's sustain when you're in a pinch, I really did not like playing with only 3 potions. So, end of the day, yeah, the champion belt ended up doing a bit more damage and had more options for gearing, that kind of stuff. Like more potion slots, you can get resistances, you can get more health and that kind of stuff. So that's why I'm using this belt instead of the Orion's Descent. And then some other gearing. I have 2 red rings with 16 int, and the reason why I'm not using these is because they're like ZDPS rings, pretty much, right? I mean, not ZDPS, but compared to the star dials, yeah, they're quite a bit less damage. And like I said, you don't really need the extra defense from these rings. I mean, at least if you're playing the way I am. And I did even try a full tank setup with like 2 red rings with 10k ward with like 6,000 armor, and the results weren't really all that great, or at least the way I like to play. Ended up not really using these. Some other good ring options is going to be the Ocean Ring. These ones are pretty good, although a 2 LP Ocean Ring is more expensive than a Star Dial, so if you're going to go for a 2 LP ring, cheaper one, definitely go for the Star Dials. This one is nice because you get Chill, and the reason Chill is important is because of Frostwall. So Frostwall is giving you 14% more damage to chilled enemies while you have active Frostwall. And the only way I'm actually applying Chill right now is with Frostwall. So you have to put the Frostwall on top of the target, pretty much. Otherwise I'm not getting my Chill and I'm not getting the damage buff. So I'm okay actually just, manually placing it on the target. And Aberroth is a big boy, so it's pretty easy to put it on top of him. But if you're using the Ocean Ring, then you don't really have to worry about that. You can just put the Frostwall wherever, and you'll be applying Chill from the ring, so you always get the buff, right? So a little bit, it's kind of small quality of life, but yeah, pretty nice ring overall. You get a little bit less damage taken. Okay, and the more damage is pretty significant, right, I would say. Okay, so that is the gear, guys. Let's go over the idols. There's quite a few different idols you can use. The combination that I found the best was these increased lightning damage while you have Lightning Aegis, and then increased lightning damage and doubled if you have over 300 mana. these, a perfect idol will be something like this with the spell damage max T7. This one's only T6, so it goes up to 9 on T6 and quite a bit more at T7. So this idol running 4 of these would be the best for actual pure DPS. But I did want to actually have my potions, so I did sacrifice a few slots for that, as well as trying to get my mana up to 300, but I don't really know how impactful this was at the end of the day because I'm only using 2 of these idols, so it's not that much damage I would be losing if I didn't have these. But yeah, pretty much then just using lightning penetration and health and mana idols. I guess the additional health does help your ward from Exsanguinous and that kind of stuff, so not really wasted stats at the end of the day. And a little bit of Void Res because I do want to be capped on Void at least. Okay, then my other idols are just giving some resistances and potion converted to ward. This one has some lightning damage, this one has some lightning damage. I could have swapped these for resistances, but I didn't really feel it made that big of a difference. You know, cold and lightning, there is only a little bit of damage like that in the fight. The main thing would probably be physical and void is the ones you want capped anyways. So okay, so that is the idols. Some other interesting idol setups I've used was like the cast speed with lightning aegis. Those ones are really fun if you run like 4 of those. Insane cast speed, but end of the day, these increased damage ones were quite a bit more in DPS. But yeah, I think either you run these or you run the cast speed idols. Cast speed ones are very fun. I gotta say, you get like 300 plus attack and cast speed. So I mean cast speed. Okay, so that is the gear. We can take a look at the blessings. We have crit multi, we have the all res, we have the armor, and then we have the increased armor, and then we have the lightning resistance shred as our blessings. And let's see, let's take a look at our different skills. All right, let's start off with lightning blast, the main damage dealer. So with lightning blast, the way we have it set up is we need a level 24 lightning blast, and we're getting the 24 lightning blast from 2 on the helmet, and then 1 from the relic, and then 1 from the catalyst. This setup is pretty tight, and I would like to have like one additional point so I can get 2 points in lightning attunement, but anyways, 1 point is enough to actually have almost perma uptime on lightning aegis. So basically, since we're using convergence, the only thing you really need to know is that convergence rounds up, so you want to be on an odd number of chains. That's why I'm only at 7 total chains, which get half to 3.5, and that goes up to 4. So we have 4 chains from here, and then from the belt we get an additional 4, you know, whenever it procs. So we're at what, 8 chains total when that procs, which is pretty big for applying the spark charges. Lightning blast only has a 30% chance, but then we have another 12% chance here, so 42% chance to apply spark charge on hit per chain. So that's pretty big. And then the double cast and the quadruple casts, pretty insane for DPS. And yeah, so that's pretty much lightning blast. Flame ward, going for the extra charge for the damage reduction, and then a little bit more damage over here. And then Frost Wall, we already went over this, but we just want to get the Chill Touch. I did get like this cleanse and this kind of stuff. Heaping Cold and Hollowing Rift, this is just to help with mana sustain, mana management. I never actually ended up using Purifying Gate because I never actually ran through my Frost Wall. So, and then just getting a little bit of extra Lightning Blasts over here. Okay, so that's Frost Wall. We're mainly just using it for the Chilled Touch buff. Alright, Teleport. This one, we kind of have to use Teleport for Meteors. This is one of the ways we get our mana back. So mana management is pretty much with the Meteor Teleport Refund tech, as well as a little bit of mana we get from the Mad Alchemist Ladle whenever we use a potion. So we get 1 mana per 4 int, so this ends up giving me like 30 or 40 mana per potion. So that's pretty big for actual mana sustain. So we kind of have to use Meteor Teleport because we will eventually run out of mana, even just casting Lightning Blast. Okay, so that's the setup pretty much for Meteors. Is what we have here, just trying to increase the mana cost. I think 180 is the max you can get, and then some remaining points will go into the Shrapnel, because maybe these will hit and a 12% chance to apply a spark charge. So that is the skills. Let's go over the passive tree. Okay, the mage tree, this is your standard mage tree. Pretty much, not really much to say about this. Spellblade, a few points for the ward, the int in the ward decay threshold. Mainly just getting this for the int. Sorcerer, this is the sorcerer tree. So, since we're low life, we can't really take this penetration and leech. So, can't really take that. That's why the tree looks a little bit weird over here. But maxed out Essence of Celerity, because this gives us increased spell damage per stage. So every point gives you more per stage, so it ends up being quite a good point allocation, whatever, right? It's pretty effective, I think. And then also the increased duration is nice, because sometimes you won't be casting continuously and you have to dodge some things, so that we won't just like lose all of our stacks as when we start to dodge things. So it's pretty nice. And I have some extra points here, about 3 extra points that I just put all into this increased lightning damage and shock chance. I don't have any other shock chance anywhere else, so this is where I'm getting my shock, pretty much. And yeah, the rest of it is just kind of here. And one thing is kind of interesting is the distant spark. So I'm taking this even over the arcane current for 5% more damage, because these are pretty insane. I think I tried with and without, and every time I didn't use these, it felt like damage was really bad. So what these do is, whenever we critically strike something away, like 4 meters away from you, I don't even know what 4 meters is, but if you're far away from the target, then you will proc this. These don't do that much damage. The tooltip's only like 19k, but these are a hit. And hits generate spark charges, right, from the fragment. It's 12% chance, but if you think about it, we are generating so many hits. We're actually generating so many hits that my, we have 19, that only my, like 70% chance to shred armor on hit is going all the way up to like 150 to 200 stacks. That's how many hits we're like generating. And spark charges can also, I would assume, proc this distant spark. So you do have potential to actually create a loop where the spark charge would proc this procs a spark charge, and then that spark charge procs this again, and you kind of get the idea, right? So there is potential for sort of a damage loop. It's very unlikely to happen. Anyways, so this very good for additional armor shred stacks, or getting up your shock or lightning shred stacks up very quickly, as well as the extra, like, a little bit of extra damage and chance to proc another spark charge. Okay, then this one, Spellslinger, is some flex points as well. You could put them in something else like Arcane Current, Archmage if you're having mana issues, or something else. Anyways, and then Elixir of Knowledge for the potion. This is insane, I would say. Like, I've never really seen many people using this node here, but if you're an instacker, this is very, very nice. Lots and lots of ward from this node here. And in Rune Master, we are taking all of this usual caster stuff, and in the end, I ended up taking out points of Sphere of Protection. I actually had this maxed at one point, but then there was one point in the fight where one of the runs I did, I got him down to about 10% health, and the arena then got filled with the Void Beams and the Void Degen, and I died. And I was like, man, if I only had 10% more DPS, I would have killed him. And so I put my points into Runeward Cataclysm, so this gives me more damage when the enemy's on low life. And yeah, in the end, this gave me the additional little bit of damage I needed to actually kill the guy off, when he reached that low life threshold. Yeah, I definitely don't really think I even needed this, because of the way that we're kind of building the character. We already have enough damage reduction with our Flame Ward up to tank most of the abilities, and the rest we just have to avoid. So anyways, so that is the skills. And see, I think we covered everything, guys, in the video. There'll be planners for my actual setup that I'm using, and then a sort of aspirational one that if you wanted to progress this even further, what kind of items I would actually go and get. And then we're also going to have one that is more of a balanced approach. So this one is just basically built to kill, for me to kill Uber Aberroth. But if you wanted to actually go and play this in monoliths, you know, this setup wouldn't, I mean, it would work, but it wouldn't really be ideal. I think for monoliths, like for example, I would probably use the Tundra helmet. I would use Red Ring and a Crab Ring for more movement speed. I'd maybe even swap my idols up a bit. You know, there's a lot of things I would swap, and I would probably get rid of Frostwall because you don't need this in monoliths. Like put like Static Orb or do for like Frostclaw or something, right? So there's a lot of things that I would swap around for monoliths. So I'll include planners for those if you want to check that out. If you want to play this build in monoliths, which is very good by the way. I'm up to like 1100 corruption, and it's just basically just deleting everything there, so you can definitely go maybe like 2k plus on this build. Anyways, but that'll be it for the video, guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Alright, so for those of you who stuck around for the whole video, thank you very much. Got a little bonus for you guys at the end. So first of all, how many attempts did this take? And I don't really know if I should actually be telling you guys this because it's kind of nuts. But let's take a look at my deaths. So I've died 1,317 times. I didn't actually look at this number when I first started farming him, or, you know, fighting him. And I did look about 1/3 of the way, and I was at 700 deaths. So I would say at least, I don't know, how many is that? Probably like 800 to 900 attempts on Uber Aberroth. Now, a lot of those were, I would say about over 100 of those were me going and testing DPS. So I would go and see how much damage I could do to him in the first like thing before he does the big slam, and then I'll just go and die to the slam and reset and try again, like trying out different DPS talent setups or different gearing and that kind of stuff, right? So not all of those were actual like real attempts, and then probably another couple hundred of those were me not really trying, as in like I had been fighting him for about 8 to 10 hours straight, and I'm just kind of just like falling asleep trying to fight him. Anyways, but it was a lot of fun. Like, you know, you would think, oh my god, wouldn't you get tilted doing that? But I actually did not get tilted once. There was only a couple of times, and that's because of the Chaos Blade. I mean, that thing is just pure evil. But it was fun, right? I don't know. It was weird. Like, I'd put on some music just to go blasting, just me and Aberroth, and we just go and fight it out for a bit, and he would win most of the time, but still actually very fun. I really enjoyed the fight. Okay, and another thing, how much gold did I spend on this character? I've spent over 10 billion on this character. You can see that I have some pretty good items, some 3LP items here, but that's not like the full picture, right? I have all these other items I tested out, like these red rings. These were all 1.7 billion, 1.7 billion, 1.7 billion. This one also 1.7 billion. I've made multiple 3LP wands. We can take a look at the stash here. Multiple 3LP enigmas, a lot of 2LP of these guys, which are all of them very good rolls on the int. I bought 2 Shattered Worlds, some 2LP items. These are just kind of whatever. Let's see what else we have. Got some Brong Warps I was testing out, some more 3LP ladles, a lot of Exalted items I was prepping for slamming. Tested out some Static Shell setups, another Exanguinous. Oh, this one was from a Harbinger. Oh, not Harbinger, the Nemesis, whatever. Lots of idols that I bought, testing out a lot of different things. A lot of these 2LP belts. So I still have a couple I can slam. Oh, I think I'm trying to divine these. Got a 3LP Crest of Unity. And a lot of other things over here too. Another 3LP Exanguinous that I bought. I was trying out the Jungle Queen belt for a little bit. And another 2LP Last Steps of the Living. Quite a lot of gold, but I mean, it doesn't really matter. I can make, you know, a couple billion in a few hours, so not really that big of a deal. Most of the time I'm actually just sitting at gold cap waiting to buy something so I can redeem my sales. Let's see if I have any new ones. Yeah, anyways. So yeah, a little bit of bonus for you guys. Stay at the end. Thanks for watching. I really had a fun time killing and fighting Aberroth. I don't really know if I'll do it again on this character. It was just sort of more of like a challenge for me personally, see if I could do it. I used to play a lot of Dota back in the day, of like 10,000 hours in Dota 2, playing a lot of Terrorblade, and I figured, you know, if I was playing Dota 2, I was pretty high MMR back then. You know, if I could play Terrorblade, position 1 Terrorblade in Dota 2 at extremely high MMR, then, you know, this fight should be a piece of cake. And eventually, after learning the patterns and that kind of stuff, did manage to take him down, so pretty stoked about that. Anyways, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time.